Target 9.4. By 2030, upgrade infrastructure and retrofit industries to make them sustainable, with increased resource use efficiency and greater adoption of clean and environmentally sound technologies and industrial processes, with all countries taking action in accordance with their respective capabilities. Indicator 9.4.1 is CO2 emissions per unit of value added. In a year marked by energy price shocks, rising inflation and disruption to traditional fuel trade flows, global growth in emissions was lower than feared, despite gas to coal switching in many countries. Increased deployment of clean energy technologies such as renewables, electric vehicles and heat pumps helped prevent an additional 550 million tonnes in CO2 emissions. Industrial production curtailment, particularly in China and Europe, also averted additional emissions. CO2 growth in 2022 was well below global GDP growth of 3.2%, reverting to a decade-long trend of decoupling emissions and economic growth that was broken in 2021's sharp rebound in emissions. However, improvement in the CO2 intensity of energy use were slightly slower than the past decade's average. Specific challenges in 2022 also contributed to the global increase in emissions. Of the overall increase of 321 million tonnes of CO2, extreme temperatures contributed 60 million tonnes from heating and cooling for buildings. The decline in nuclear power generation, due to both maintenance and continued phase-outs, led to another 55 million tonnes of CO2. Emissions from natural gas decreased by 1.6% or 118 million tonnes in 2022 as an already tight gas supply was exacerbated by the Ukraine war and the widespread trade disruptions that followed. Coal emissions grew 243 million tonnes to a new all-time high of almost 15.5 billion tonnes. This 1.6% increase was faster than the 0.4% annual average over the previous decade. Emissions from oil grew by 2.5% to 112 billion tonnes in 2022. Around half of the year-on-year increase came from aviation as air travel continued its recovery from the pandemic lows. The rebound to pre-pandemic emission levels was faster in advanced economies, where last year's aviation emissions reached 85% of the 2019 levels, compared with 73% in emerging markets and developing economies.